Нам позвонить. Да, конечно, конечно. Нет, сегодня давайте. Вы все равно до 5 будете, правильно? Я вам опять позвоню. Спасибо, Танюша. Это другой у вас телефон, потому что у меня другой будет ваш. Ну то есть это не ваш, это ваш. Я понял. Хорошо, Танечка, сейчас у меня начинается уже моя смена. Хорошо, спасибо, всего доброго.
Ага.
Работал. Зверишь его нужно.
О-хо-хо! В Раде, что ли? В Раде? Нет?
Работали в политехникуме связи, бывший сейчас Волочь.
Ну да, на Шевченко.
Причем она позвонила за день до этого.
Мабуть, так.
Шановні колеги, впродовж.
Dear colleagues, to continue our today meeting of the Association of the Enterprises Ukrvodokanalecologiya that was held on the first half of this day, we gathered here today in order to discuss a very painful issue, which is not the first attempt to discuss it, and it is not very open manner, not very transparent to consider the draft resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers on the approval of the assets distribution with the special accounts and in paying back the credits and loans that have been obtained from been received from international organizations. We are speaking about the enterprises of sewages and water supply nature. They were informed about this draft resolution, and we've discussed this issue in a very broad circle of experts. And we have sent appealing letters starting from the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine and in the standing committees of the Parliament, to the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Fuel and Energy, and a chain of other institutions, including the Prosecutor's General Office. Some of them, they have already responded to that, and since this problem is very critical for the enterprises of Ukrainian utilities, means drainage systems and water supply, and I would like to give floor to the people who know the issue in details. Ivan Vasilievich, the word is yours. Dear colleagues, dear audience, for the first time in my life, may I speak Russian. This is for the first time that I see this so-called burglary in the Cabinet of Ministers. The draft resolution was just read. We didn't have any hard copy of that or an electronic version. Nobody knew that this is draft law, and just by incidentally we learned that this this resolution has already been adopted, and this resolution violates 3 laws, and it is against the norms and regulations of the Constitution of Ukraine. Means that 2 Ukrainian enterprises, they push them to give out the assets, the money that we collected for thermal energy. This issue must be considered thoroughly. I believe that everything that already been done today, it is still circulating behind the curtain, and thank you, my colleagues, because this resolution has already been voted, adopted, and the Ministry of Justice is against this document. The only people who are lobbying this resolution are energy enterprises. Maybe from their point of view they are right, but everybody is equal in our sector, means gas supply, water supplier, and people who maintain our sewage system. And since this situation is under discussion today, this is a great achievement of our organization, our association. We are not afraid of the future of water supply utilities, but we are afraid on the fate of cities, because it will be catastrophic for that, for them. And of course, this lobbying invokes in water supply enterprises lack of understanding of this policy. And the question is, who is lobbying? Not only energy people, but I do not understand the National Commission that has brought this under discussion, because they are responsible as well as us for the situation in our enterprises in the field of hot water supply and sewages. And they did not understand the situation, and they just brought this draft resolution. So I do not want to be pathetic, but in my mind, it is only misunderstanding from my point of view, or just a crime, and it is aimed at ruining water supply and sewage organizations and then privatize them. Maybe they must be privatized today, nobody knows, but you must do it civilized way. But if you put people in a situation where they do not have any water supply or sewages and then do the business, then this is not a proper approach. Thank you, Ivan Vasilievich. In fact, the situation is very hazy. Our association unites 129 enterprises in the water supply and sewages, and this is dominating power, because we are responsible for over 80% of water supply in Ukraine. We are discussing all the problems in our community. But I would like to appeal to the civil society. Shall we not continue our way, the way of a country with a market economy, having 24 years of independence? Shall we lag behind this democratization process? This one-sided approach is very it invokes great sadness, because all that ruined enterprises, they will be recovered by communities, by society, by citizens of Ukraine. So if you look at the way the tariffs are being calculated, you will see that we have different procedures for small and big enterprises. We do not have one and the same approach to all the enterprises of the water supply and drainage system and sewages. Today in Chernihivvodokanal company, starting from 2009, they did not change their tariff. Within this period, there have been a lot of changes have been made in sense of salaries, in sense of prices for spare parts and works. I would like to give floor to Olga Babiy, head of Bilotserkivvoda company. In our association, she is chairman of the tariff policy group. I would like to hear from her personal impression. Good afternoon, everybody, dear colleagues. I start from the very beginning why water supply and sewage companies. What is the specialized account or distribution account? The mechanism provides for all the assets that travels to our account. They automatically must be distributed, and depending on the share of power consumption, is it 30 or 35%? On average in Ukraine, it's 35 to 55% the share of electricity in the water supply. Those money, without our consent, they are transferred into electricity utilities, distribution companies. Why we started to understand this? For two reasons. First of all, the mechanism will be applicable to all the assets, the profit from the major line of activity. In this mechanism, they do not take into account the subsidies and discounts that are covered from the state budget. This clumsy mechanism will allow to write off from water supply and sewage utilities the amounts that are much higher than in fact were consumed. Secondly, as for the legal nature of this resolution, the resolution could be adopted if the law, all Ukrainian law, allows for this resolution to be adopted. At present, this could not be adopted. Why? Because there is nothing like a law that provides for special mechanism for automatic write-off of the assets from the utility accounts, any utility. In due time, the Ministry of Regional Development submitted a certain draft law, number 1538, to the Parliament. This draft law was rejected. Why rejected? For one only reason, because our coalition agreement stipulates very clearly that our coalition, existing coalition in the Ukrainian Parliament, get rid of similar mechanism and distribution accounts, and in a due time these distribution accounts should be cancelled, void and nil. This is a requirement from the World Bank and all the IFIs that give helping hand to Ukraine. Why? Because it is in contradiction with the principles or fundamentals of entrepreneurship activity of any company, and it is against our acting code of economic activity because there is direct regulation of economic activity. For some reason, in spite of a lot of these discrepancies, this resolution is to be adopted. In my turn, being head of big enterprise, I have two threats. I support Mr. Korinko in his words that cities could live without water supply and sewages, and I would like to see it by my eyes, because in that case somebody will wake up, because when this somebody opens a tap and no water, or flush water closet and nothing happens, then he would like to think it over. Again, a big share of our money is salaries, it's social protection of our people. If this mechanism will be introduced, you may understand that from our accounts, automatically a certain money will be wrote off. And our people, many thousands of jobs, they will not have their salaries in time. In present time in Ukraine, when it is a high social pressure of high tariffs, and even our people, they are not all of them are able to pay for utilities, for the services, for water supply and sewages. That's why I support the opinion of my colleagues, and I stress that I will fight against this mechanism because it's illegal procedure. When our cabinet of ministers will have a proper law in hand and all the ministries will approve this, then we will understand that this is a will of the regulator and we will obey this. Like children, they are obedient and they must do what their parents tell them. Thank you. Thank you, Olga. Andreevna, in continuation of our round table, I would like to give floor to the head of Chernihivvodokanal communal utility, Vladimir Kuzma. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. This is not the topic we are discussing now is not very well understood by everybody who is watching us now, but the experts in water and sewage industry, they understand us, and they would like to prevent from consequences that we could face in the nearest future. We have already bad experience, not for the first year. We communicate to our power sector colleagues. We know the consequences of distribution accounts that were introduced in that industry due time ago, and we know what it is. In this year, we understand the direct consequences of these distribution accounts were introduced to electricity distribution companies. Not only electricity, but the hot water supply, etc., because population could not pay, and they have, the enterprise itself has great debt to energy suppliers. So when these distribution accounts will be introduced for Vodokanal companies, then we will have similar situation, and that's why we urge you not to be very fast in your decisions. And for people who make decision, they should understand the situation of people that could not pay that high tariffs. The losses are accumulating, and first of all, the tariff policy lays in the roots of that problem. Our license holders, starting from July this year, they had proper tariff that was market-oriented, but since in the structure of our costs we have 40–50% as a share that goes for power supply, and we have a lot of industrial consumers, and it influences on that. Unfortunately, the national regulator has different attitude to different license holders. Means tariffs for electricity it was changed several times. In our utility sector, it only has been changed twice. But at the same time, we know that the prices for fuel and energy rise several times, etc., etc. So our debt is accumulating month to month because of that. In Ukraine, hardly that we have at least one company in utility sector that does not have a great debt before power supply companies. So in order to rectify this situation, we must create our debt, because in that case, this debt could be paid from the state budget. Since we use the mechanism that is stipulated by the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers, we have already 1 million hryvnia of fines. Again, the procedure of paying back, it is very lengthy procedure, and at that long period of time, the debt is being accumulated. If we're speaking about power supply, then again, because of our unprofitable situation, we have around 3 million hryvnia of debt to the electric power distribution companies. So the fines reached up to 5 million hryvnia, and this is unfair amount of money, but it is calculated according to all the procedures, according to the legislation, because we must pay our creditor, first of all, for compensation for inflation. It's around 27% in the first half, then fine 35% of annual interest. And again, those money, they are very high in amount. Why? Because the regulator has not developed and introduced a proper mechanism of compensation for losses because of discounts and subsidies. So we ask all the highest officials to learn this problem in deep, not to introduce these distribution accounts and allow us to work with a profit. And then only write off all the money they want to do. Thank you. Maybe colleagues have something to add. Dear colleagues, I've already mentioned this several times, and once again I tell you, we must claim our feelings loud, because everybody in our cities, they open tap in the morning, they consume water, but this water with this policy may be stopped, and then it will be a collapse, because cities could not be deprived of water supply. What we are discussing today, I would like to develop certain recommendation of our association as a result of this discussion and submit these recommendations in order to be heard by President, by Parliament, by Prime Minister, that you should not work with us this way. Like Kharkivvodokanal, it's 1.5 million people. How they can survive without water supply? But it will be the end of this process. Why? Because people, they will not have salary probably, or people will work for 1 or 2 months longer, but we will not be able to buy folliculant, chlorine, and in Kharkiv the length of water supply pipe work is 150 kilometers. So we supply 600,000 cubic meters daily. And once again, I would like to add, they say the tariffs are very high, but the bottle of this water is 10 hryvnia in price. But if you take this and 1 cubic meter of our running water is 5 hryvnia. It means 20,000 of this type of bottles. I understand that probably population does not have assets to pay for that. And once again, if we facing this situation now, once again, it is impossible to recover by means of tariffs something that never have been recovered before. Means something been built, been developed, and then stopped all of a sudden, and nobody invested a single kopeck, a single cent into reanimation, renovation. They only put all that burden in tariff. And again, when you deprive us of the last money in hand, dear colleagues, please do understand us properly, because everybody, including public officials, they understand that we must turn everybody's attention to the situation in our country and to learn how to survive. The recommendations, we must develop them, we must submit it, they must hear us, because if not us, then who? Thank you very much. Then I would like to once again mention that it is not for the last time that we mentioned this. So we must develop like any other civilized country. Deputy Director of Poltava-Vodokanal Company, dear colleagues, I would like again to say, in Poltava-Vodokanal, in my company, we do not change tariff for 1.5 years, and last time it only was increased by the proportionally by the increase of the power supply. We understand that power supply has changed, so we would submit our calculations to NERC. They do not accept them, and the tariff every month is changed for electricity. Means we could not survive, and I join the words of my colleagues that 1 or 2 months and our people, our employees, will refuse to work. They will not be paid for that. But the greatest disaster is that we will have to stop water supply in the cities. And of course I support the message that we must discuss it together, and we must develop, prepare an appeal, an application, letter, or memo, and submit it to proper institutions. Thank you, Lyudmila Alexandrovna. I would like again repeat that the country is going into election marathon, and I would like to appeal here, approach here to the heads of local government, because all the candidates I consider today as a potential local governor. So please, dear colleagues, do not get rid of a baby with the water. You will be carrying the responsibility for the situation, and for us it is very important to share European experience, where we know that the local water supply, this is a personal obligation of the local authorities before local community, and we should consider this together and in mass. If we are speaking about decentralization as a process that was claimed as a way for Ukraine, then let us do it, and let us assign proper functions to local communities and local utilities. So I believe that the great attention must be paid to the best practices, which is Germany, Poland, because local communities, they take responsibility for that and they make proper decisions, and they do not have any imbalances like here. Yesterday we've been speaking with Hungarian Water Association president, and very tough regulation from governmental side put them into pre-disaster situation. So we have already discussed this with German and Polish people that are in a very good situation. They may open their taps any time of day and they will have high quality water, but that should be paid off. And we will have to probably go into limited water supply regime. And if you see something going wrong in your city, dear citizens, then please submit your application. Please approach everybody. Thank you. I would like again to give floor to head of the Tariff Policy Working Group, to Ms. Olga Babiy. Dear viewers, dear colleagues, recently I live with the principle that you should not lie to anybody, because our children, they will pay for that. Because again, all the losses that are incorporated into tariff structure, it's repair, recover, build of new purification stations and water treatment stations. So our great task now is that we must have the highest publicity for our viewers to understand that the high quality water, they will not have it tomorrow, because as Yuriy Ivanovich mentioned, Germany, Poland, Hungary, they've been doing the reforms for dozens of years, and of course they have high quality water, tapped water, but it's €1 for water supply, €1 for sewages. We understand that our community is not very rich today, but you should not be afraid of tariffs, high tariffs. You must use at a maximum extent the mechanisms that have been approved by government, the compensation. And once again, if we will put down tariffs, we will ruin our equipment, our facilities, our infrastructure. It will not be developed, because we have now units, sites of 23 years old, and nobody did anything in that area. Means that in 23 years we have already ate all the money, ate all the positive improvements, so the tariff must stay at minimum. And what about the payment of services? Of course, this is the responsibility of the state to find out the proper mechanism of compensation to people who are not able to pay for communal services, and give them social guarantees. Today we are speaking about the subsidies and discounts. Of course, discounts is certain categories. Subsidy is something that allows people to be protected against the rise of tariffs. Again, we are on one hand, we are managers, top managers of huge enterprises. On the other hand, we are ordinary citizens, and we understand that not only they, but us, we not always are able to pay for the tariffs, high tariffs. So the speculations around the tariffs, it is out of any understanding, because the tariffs will rise. Even if we do not do anything, in 5 years they will rise higher and higher. The more optimizations, the more improvements we will have, the more actions we will take in the improvement of quality, then the tariffs will rise higher and higher. The world global practice gives us an example, and in 5 years the tariffs will be stabilized if those 5 years will be used for improvements. So we are not afraid to be transparent. We may give any information on our tariffs. And again, I appeal to everybody, do not travel to, say, charity organizations or political forces. Approach us, Vodokanal companies, because this is the only one place where you may meet understanding. Thank you, Olga Andreevna. Maybe there are certain questions in the audience. If there are any questions, colleagues, thank you. Dear speakers, thank you for your work. Today the work of Crisis Media Center is over. Tomorrow we'll continue at 10 a.m. Thank you very much for your hospitality. We understand that this is a good beginning for us, and we would like to cooperate with you. Our association is rather good, the biggest in the communal services. We have already united our 3 associations, means heat supply, water supply, sewages. So you being the mass media, we as an experts may push this issue together ahead. Thank you very much.